Today we're going to talk about how to learn piano as fast as humanly possible. My main instrument in music school was classical piano, so I've had to learn pieces that are over 15 pages long within a few months. And basically my grade was dependent on how well I practiced and how well I did in that one performance. So an entire semester of practicing 2 to 4 hours a day at least just for this one performance. And these pieces were pushing my limits, like Chopin, Bach, and also pushing the limits of my memory. So today I'm going to show you exactly how I practiced and pretty much some of the tips I got from these university professors that have been playing piano their whole lives. So first of all, we have to talk about muscle memory. So the big thing with pianists and pretty much anything you do is a lot of it is dependent on muscle memory. When you're lifting weights, that technique is mostly subconscious. And a lot of times we learn motor skills by actually practicing them over and over and over again until they become stuck in nature. So every time I sit at a keyboard, I don't have to think where the notes are. I don't have to think which finger is going where. And a lot of the songs that I've learned, even if they're like 20 pages, by the end of practicing, I could play them with my eyes closed. So the biggest thing to understand about practice is muscle memory. But there's a catch. Every time you practice something right, it's one step closer to perfection. But every time you practice something wrong, that's one step in the opposite direction. So maybe you've been practicing for a while, but a lot of times what happens to pianists is, let's say I practice something wrong for a long amount of time, especially in a song. Even if it's just a single note, it can be super hard to correct it if you spent hours and hours doing that one wrong mistake. So basically all we have to do is make fewer mistakes. But again, that's easier said than done. So how do we make fewer mistakes? So first, we need to prioritize accuracy over speed. And this is a huge roadblock I had to overcome. And having patience. So when we first get a song, we just want to be able to play it fast. But the actual fastest way to learn a song is to slow down a bit and get it right first. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe. I'm really paying attention to what you guys want, what's actually helpful and valuable for you. So this is the method my professor taught me, and that's basically the staircase method. So we're going to start at a slower volume, let's say 60. So I'll practice it once there until we feel comfortable with it. Then we'll put it up to like 65. Then we'll put it up. Basically at each level, we're going to want to practice it until we don't make a mistake. And then we're going to go back down. So let's say I start at 60, and I raise it to 65, then 70. Then I'm going to go back to 65, and basically it's going to feel a lot more comfortable there. And I'm just going to keep going. Biggest thing with this, use a metronome. Let's say I'm just practicing one riff. Let's say I'm just trying to learn that one riff. So instead of just starting out super fast, it sounds terrible. So using the staircase method, we're going to start slow. And then we'll ramp it up a little bit. But again, use a metronome. Then a little bit more. And let's say I mess up there. So I messed up on purpose. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back down. And I'm going to do that 3 times. And then I can ramp it up again. And I messed up again. So, and this is where I messed up a lot, is it was very close, but I still made that mistake. And it didn't sound like a mistake because it was on a scale, but I'm trying to learn the riff exactly. So instead of just brushing over that and making it faster at that speed until we get it perfect. And my trick is also to just ramp up to a speed that's a little above where I want to go. Then it makes it a little more comfortable. So again, don't gamble with mistakes. Make sure you use a metronome, even though it's annoying and you just want to get the song perfect. Use the staircase method. Even if you have to stay at that one low tempo, make sure you can play it perfectly 5 times before you fully ramp up. So I'll also talk about the power of sleep. So the thing with memory is, a lot of memories aren't just formed during practice. You also have to process what you're practicing. So if you're super tired and not even paying attention to what you're practicing, there's less of a chance you're going to keep that in memory. So you basically get better in 2 places. While we're practicing, and also throughout the day and while we sleep. So this is why sometimes musicians will just have their music and they'll go through it in their mind. This is another effective strategy for practice. You don't even have to have a piano. Especially if you have a lot of music to process and memorize. Just looking at the music in your day-to-day life, processing it, it's going to help you memorize it a lot faster. Next, we'll talk about the difficulty level of our practice. So there's 2 things that I fell into most of the time. Either I'm making the practice session too easy, so I'm just playing the parts of the song that I really know over and over and over again and kind of ignoring the ones that I don't. Or I make the practice session too hard, where I'm trying to go too fast in a section I haven't even learned yet, and basically that's just counterproductive. So let's say I have the first 5 measures of a song memorized. Naturally, our mind is just going to want to start from there every time. And let's say that's where I start messing up. I just want to start over, right? Well, it would be better to actually start at the place where we're messing up and go slower. So that's how you combat practice session being too easy. Pretty much everything I said in this video. Use a metronome, go slower. But also, we want to make sure that we're making it achievable. Because if we're just doing the hard parts every single time, it's not going to be a good time. You also want to think about your skill level compared to where the song is. So there's even songs that I don't bother learning. So there's 3 factors in something that would make something too hard. You have your skill level, you have the difficulty of the piece, and then you also have the amount of time you're willing to spend to learn the piece. So let's say you're really, really good at piano, and the difficulty of the piece is extremely hard, like Chopin level, super hard, like 20 pages, and you're trying to memorize it. If the only amount of time you're willing to spend is a few days, then it's probably not going to work out, and you're just going to get frustrated. So just think about these 3 factors. And by balancing these 3 factors, you're going to be able to practice a lot better. It's going to feel a lot better, and you're going to make more progress faster. And again, sometimes this is referred to the Goldilocks zone, because it feels really nice to just play songs you know. You know, especially if you're trying to learn multiple songs. A lot of times you'll just avoid a song entirely to play something you already know. So I wanted to keep this video super simple. And you might be saying to yourself right now, well, I already know all this. It's super basic. How is this any help? But it's actually the basics, and doing them repeatedly, that's the hardest part. Because you might say, I'm amazing at piano. I don't need to play a piece at 60 BPM, super slow over and over again. But actually, that's how people learn. And the final tip is to continue practicing warm-ups and scales. So what scales and warm-ups are going to do, they're going to increase your overall skill to make it a lot easier to learn these things. So as you can tell in that, I noticed, hey, my left hand's lagging a little bit. So instead of just practicing a super difficult song, maybe I have to go back to scales and make sure my left hand is up to speed with my right. And I could do the same thing with my left hand. Start slow and improve. Also take more advanced warm-ups, like arpeggios. Try not to look down. And eventually that's going to be super easy. It's going to be muscle memory. And so when you see something like that in a song, suddenly you can do it easy. Another thing with scales, practice all kinds of different scales. So that was just a major scale. You can practice minor scale. And you can also add octaves. Also, you can add other kinds of scales, like tip is to learn more music theory. So learning music becomes super easy the more music theory you know. So instead of reading a piece note for note for note, you can start to see patterns. You can recognize, instead of reading this as 10 notes, instead of reading this as like 10 notes, you can just see, hey, that's a C major 9 chord. And that just makes practicing and learning 10 times easier. You'll also notice consistencies in chord progressions and things like that. The more you understand the music, the easier it is going to be to finish it. Especially once you learn music theory, a lot of the popular songs you probably want to learn become super easy, because they're mostly the same chord progressions with a melody on top. I'll go deeper into music theory in the Modern Music Creator course, but for now, pretty much learn chord progressions, learn the scales, and that's going to 10 times your piano practice. So if you want to learn more about chord progressions specifically, make sure you watch this video next, and I'll see you there.